Welcome to Camera Ready Convos. I am Sakeitha, your host. I'm also a beauty professional and hairstylist by trade. I use my gifts to provide a resource and build a platform for fellow creatives to succeed. So, thank you for being my first official guest.
No problem, no problem.
And pretty much I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background. I recently learned on your website that you were a doctor of pharmacy and
Yeah,
transitioned into photography. So
yeah,
that sounds like a pretty interesting
yeah.
crossover.
I don't talk about it a lot. I usually don't lead with that.
Okay.
I know when I first when I first started, I did kind of lead with because in the beginning, I still worked as a pharmacist for the most part. But it's really not that deep of a story. People think it is, but it's not. It's not really. I mean, I went to Florida A&M University.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, got my doctorate of pharmacy there. Worked in the field for about I would say about 8 years or whatever, and then I decided to get out. A lot of different reasons for that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't go too deep into it, but I would just say for me, it was a moral type scenario. You know,
Okay.
when you're working in the drug industry, you know,
Okay.
run
Yeah.
across a couple things that might not sit well with you. So I had to get out of it for that particular reason for the most part. I will say though, if anybody comes across my site, I think I have the story on there where basically my wife ended up finding a camera at a bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the camera and I just played around with it. I always wanted some type of professional camera, but never really bought into it because I didn't really care too much about taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got the camera, I played around with it, and I kind of liked what I had going on. And then what ended up happening was in the side of the bag, there was like an ID, basically an older couple ended up leaving it at the bus stop. So we found the couple, contacted them, and we ended up giving them camera back. They gave us a little small monetary reward, and that was cool. I mean, it wasn't anything big. So from there, like literally the next day, I went out and bought my first camera, and I shot my mother-in-law's birthday get together.
Okay.
Images were trash, but but after that, you know, I just kept growing and growing and growing. Basically, went to YouTube University and looked up as much information I could on cameras and kind of, you know, figured out how to, you know, work the camera in a professional sense.
Mm-hmm.
From there, um, like I said, the first set of photos that I took were not good at all. But basically, from there, I just year by year, I just grew and grew and grew. Learned how to retouch from YouTube, just all that, and just put everything together and try to kind of just build my my style and my look based off any of the other photographers that I saw that I kind of looked up to, and tried to
Mm-hmm.
basically combine what I thought looked good with what they were doing, and tried to kind of create my own lane for the most part.
Okay, sounds good. What I really like about working with you is that the images that you create are very really clean and striking.
Mhm.
So would you say that's your voice, or how did you come, and if it is, how did you get to that? And if it isn't, what do you think is your aesthetic?
I, my aesthetic, and I keep coming back to it, is the whole clean type vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I really arrived at that. It was just something that I kind of fell into. When I first started, I was more attracted to beauty images uh,
Mm-hmm.
more than fashion. And actually, fashion kind of scared me a little bit because it's a total difference from shooting beauty and shooting like full body clothing and all that. It's, to me, the lighting is somewhat different, and then just the positioning, even the lens choice is totally different. Some lenses make a photo look a certain way and others don't. Some can come out looking more distorted than others, and some will be good for making a model look more beautiful than she already is. Uh, but I honestly don't know how I fell into that, to be completely honest. This is just something that I was drawn to. I've always been told that my images have more of a clean look, and it's hard for me to kind of break out of that. Funny thing about it is the industry is moving kind of away from the clean look. It's going more towards a gritty film look, which is, it just seems like the industry is kind of recycling, because at the beginning it was film. Then digital cameras started coming out. So then things started looking more clean and more digitized. And now we're rotating back into film. If you pay attention, like a lot of these, especially in the climate that we're in, we have a lot of photographers that look like us that are popping up on the scene, you know, and I love their work, but it kind of looks alike. So, and when I say it looks alike, it's the film work, you know, the way that the film looks and the color grading and just that particular set of fashion images, which we've been recycled back into. It looks totally different than what it was when film first came out, but it's still film, and I love film. I don't really know how to shoot it, but but I do love the look and the character of the artwork.
So you said that the film, it gives it more like a gritty, like a realness to it, as opposed to more.
Yes, but see, it's different types of looks to films, because a lot of films can be more noisy when you see all the speckles and all the stuff, and then some, and it just depends on how the photographer is shooting it. Some will look more smooth, but you can always tell film from a digitized image or image shot with a digital camera by the look at how creamy it looks. Like you can look at the whites in the photo and they look super smooth and super creamy, and the skin is super smooth and super creamy. There's always some type of flatness to the blacks, like it'll look, the shadows will still be dark, but it'll have like a kind of hazy look to it, so to speak. And it does give it more of a realness type of vibe to the shot. To me, that's what I see when I look at it.
Okay. So, in choosing your subjects, like what do you look for in, like, when you select a model or you start developing like a mood, or an image that you want to shoot or create?
I look at the face first. That's for me, because my background is kind of beauty. So I look at the face, and I look at usually like the jawline, and whether or not I can see like the cheek bone and the indentation in the cheek. I try to look for strong features. But then I also try to look for more softer features depending on what my vibe is for the particular shoot that we're shooting. If I'm going more commercial, I'll try to go for a softer look and not as much like striking jaw edges and lines in the face. I like to kind of soften it up. Right now, you know, things are going more to inclusive type side. So you kind of got to open that up. You can't just be like, okay, well, this is the specific type of model that I'm going to shoot, and I'm just going to leave it at this. You know, you got to open it up. Everybody, you know, is being accepted into the modeling world in the industry now. So you can't just shoot one type of model. So
okay, so that scope is broadening.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have a choice, like, because before you'll try to shoot the type of models that you see normally on things. And it's not that you don't think that the other models that are being included now were not good enough. You know, you just know that this particular subset of models is what a lot of brands are looking for. And that's sad to say, but that's how a lot of photographers fall into the trap of only shooting a specific type of model where they all look the same. Like you have, you know, the Caucasian model who is blonde hair, blue eyes, and angular features, you know, long, skinny, and tall. And then you'll have like the model that looks kind of mixed and has the curly hair and the pretty eyes and, you know, the pretty face. And, you know, these are models that are socially acceptable, you know, in the scope of like magazine covers and ads and things like that. But then you also have the models that are super dark skinned, you know, that weren't really accepted at first, but now they're becoming more and more prevalent. But see, the interesting thing about that is were always super dark skinned models, but they just look super African. So
Mm.
now we're getting into a situation to where now we have an American looking dark skinned model that's being accepted on a broader base. But
Mhm.
and even that situation is kind of for me because I don't even know whether or not to take that as being a trend or if that's
Something
being
that's
something that's really being
here to
accepted
stay.
for real,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I don't really know how to speak to that, but I am trying to shoot, you know, a broad scope, you know,
Mm-hmm.
now. So
And that's something I noticed with your portfolio is that you have a broad scope of faces and representations of beauty. So
mhm.
that's something that I really think is really important to highlight that you've been able to incorporate every kind of beauty in and bring it to the forefront.
Yeah.
So, what do you consider to be your best studio experience with models um, or a talent in front of the camera? Like when they come in, what is the best? Like that's what is your best experience
Like from the past or like what do I want
past
to
and the things that this has happened and this is what I want to happen or hoping to happen for my upcoming shoots.
You know, that's a tough question because I really don't have a best situation in studio that I've experienced. I mean, I've had good situations and I've had very bad situations, but none I can just be like I can single that one. I'd be like, oh no, this has been the best type of scenario. Um, Now, as far as like what I like to see, so when I'm shooting a model, if I'm not being rushed, what I try to do is if I don't know them already, I try to have some type of an icebreaker type conversation. It's not something that I'm just like I have like a line of questioning that I do. I don't have anything like that. I try to genuinely speak to the model because for me, once I do that, the gel on set between photographer and model, at least for me, becomes a lot more genuine and it kind of takes the kinks out of the shoot because I've been on shoots to where it's kind of rushed and I don't have time to really introduce myself or have some type of a meaningful conversation with the model beforehand.
Mhm.
To where we get on set and it's just awkward, and then the images don't turn out, you know, well, you know. So what I like to do is I try to have some type of conversation. I don't, I don't, I don't want to go too deep with the conversation, but it needs to be definitely below a surface conversation, at least for me, because that way I can see where the model's head is. And, you know, and you can kind of feel a model out and see, okay, can I joke with this model on set? Or do I need to be completely serious the whole time? And you feel that out, because I like to have fun on set, but sometimes I'm on set and it's strictly business, you know. And for me, that type of setup is not fun, and at least not for me, because
Mhm.
I makes me feel like I'm just there just to get a job done, and it kind of sucks the life out of the shoot. The images might turn out well, but like the experience wasn't as great as I wanted it to be because I don't want any models to tell anyone or have a conversation about me and say that the experience was trash because he was an a-hole, or just very cold-hearted type person, but yeah, I like to see a conversation beforehand. um, I like to see, you know, if I'm shooting with the team, I like to see, you know, the hairstylist, the makeup artist, and the stylist getting along, and also getting along with me. Because if there is some type of you know, separation between those, then the gel on set just falls flat, and then it it causes the images. You can see it in the images, at least in my head. You can see it in the images where something didn't quite connect, where the hair or the makeup or the styling just didn't go with something that was going on, and it's just the images are weird. And also what happens in that type of situation for me is if I felt on set that the gel wasn't there and the images didn't come to a point or to a space where I like them, then they suffer in post too, because now I'm looking at the images saying, okay, these images
Mm.
kind of trash. I don't want to really edit these, so I'm just going to speed through the retouch, you know, so they suffer, which makes everybody else suffer because now everybody has wasted their time, you know. So, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So I need to see all of that. The gel between everybody on set needs to be there for me for the images to turn out the way they're supposed to turn out. But yeah,
Okay. So key things are personality and
I
and we
don't care if
work
you're
work out
faking
from there.
it. Yeah, if you're faking it, I mean, as long as you got a good fake going on, we should be good. But yeah, the personality is definitely key. Because I've been on some sets to where I'm just like, I would never work with this person or these people again, even if I was being paid. So yeah, the personality is definitely key for sure.
Okay, that's really good to hear. I have a couple more questions. Let's see. What are some of the things that you'd like for models to, or your talent, just on screen? What should people remember when the camera's on them?
For the model,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, if a model is new, I try to give them as many pointers as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I when they walk on set, first thing I do is I tell them a little bit more about me, as
Mm-hmm.
far as what happens when I'm shooting. I tell them first and foremost, I don't talk a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
see, what happens is a lot of models, they misconstrue a photographer not talking a lot or saying anything as the photographer hates what they're doing. But that's not always the case with me. I tell them up front, I don't speak a lot. So don't think that I don't like what you're doing. Trust me, if I don't like what you're doing, I'm gonna start giving you a lot of direction.
Okay.
And that's okay, because if I'm giving you direction, then we're gonna both get what we need out of the shot.
Yeah.
But if I'm not speaking, you're probably doing okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after that, while we're shooting, I try to make sure they know what their key light is. And for those that don't know what a key light is the light that is basically the star of the show. This is where you're getting the most uh, direct lighting from. What this is what we're using to basically light you for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want you to step too far to the left, too far to the right, you know, because a lot of models like to do a lot of moving. And what we don't want is you to fall into shadow or fall out of the designated space where we have set the exposure correct for the image. Um, but that's pretty much it while they're on set, just letting them know those things. But as far as like before they get on set, one thing I always stress to models before and after, especially if they're new, is their their face. Models, you know, especially new ones, they just think that it's just the pose, but no, you really need to know your face. You
Okay.
need to know what looks good, what your angles are, but you also can't be confined to that angle. You can't be confined to that specific face. It's a lot of models right now in the industry. If you look at look through editorials and you'll see a few models that are being used over and over. A lot of them will have a specific face, and that's
Mhm.
what they use in every shot for the most part. And that's cool if you can kind of dress it up a little bit. But if that's the only face you have, then that's a problem. And I hate to compare models, but one model that I like to use as an example for models is Coco. She knows her face well. She can do things with her face that most models can't do. But I believe I would have to assume she spent many hours in the mirror just practicing different facial expressions. But you have to know your face, you have to be able to control it, especially when you're going through all these ranges of poses. Sometimes your face will contort along with the pose, but you have to know how to not allow that to happen so that your face can still look good on camera, and if you're doing some type of a weird pose. But then after the face, you have the posing. That's secondary for me. Um, a lot of new models, they look at older stuff and they're thinking that the whole elbows out and the jagged posing is where it's at, but it's actually not. What you need to do is you need to just calm down and you need to just be natural, and be more nonchalant with your poses, at least for me, and at least from what I've seen, by looking at different editorials and campaigns and things like that. We're not in the era of super high fashion type poses right now. It's more delicate now. Knowing your hand placement, because that's a big thing for models. It they a lot, especially a lot of new models, they don't know what to do with their hands, and they they just don't know. They don't know what to do with their hands, and they don't know what to do with their feet. And those two things will mess your pose up. So you gotta learn your face, learn your hand and your feet placement, and then just your posing of your body in general. But you have to be able to practice those things. And a lot of models, they don't practice. They just think it's just okay, I'm signed. I'm about to go out here and do this job. But then I've been on sets and jobs where this model has 1 million and something followers, 2 million, 5 million followers, and they get on set and it's just you gonna move like, I mean, I see you turn your head, but this isn't exactly a selfie type shoot. You need to
Mhm.
be able to do poses. It's fantastic that this pose where you bend your knee and you point your toe, and that's
Oh.
great for Instagram. But you gotta sell these clothes, man. I mean, so I don't know. It's a lot that goes into it, and as far as like advice for models, those are the things that they really need to look at.
Okay. That's that sounds like sound advice, even for me, because I'm thinking about like now that we're in this area of BTS and people getting like behind the scenes photos. I'm on camera more than I would prefer to be, even in this
Mhm.
setting. And I
Right.
realize that when I'm working, I have like a serious, like almost like evil face, and it's like I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't show this to anyone. But even for like for models being able to recognize that their face needs to show range, I think
Mhm.
it I can see myself in that, even though I'm not planning to jump in front of the the lens anytime soon.
I mean, everybody takes pictures at some point. So yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't matter as much for you because you're not going to be
Right.
on the shots that much, and you're not trying to sell anything until you have a product that you want to sell. Um,
Right.
but but yeah, for models, you got to have that range, man. You
Range,
got to
yeah.
be able to. So, I mean, you might not have a strong smile because you might not be in a commercial aspect, but some
Right.
editorial is going to call for you to smile and laugh, even if it's a serious editorial, well, for a serious magazine,
Mhm.
it, you really have to study certain editorials and certain things. Like I was shooting this model at her house for a job, and like when I walked into her house, like you can tell this model. was a model for real,
Mm,
because she has all these coffee table books of like photographers that most models wouldn't even know who the heck these guys are, like older photographers. And then she has all these old magazines that she looks through, and then just like pictures of old editorials. And you can tell that she's actually looking at these things and studying these things.
mm,
But models nowadays, a lot of them, I'm not gonna say all of them because obviously I don't know all of them. They don't do things like that. They just look at Instagram, and like even if you send them a sheet of like poses, I know all photographers don't do this, but I do sometimes, especially if it's a new model. I'll send them like a inspiration
mm,
sheet of poses that I probably am going to want to try during the shoot. And some of them won't even look at the sheet. And you get on set, and then it's like, you don't know what to do. But like I sent you this sheet like a week ago. You could have been in the mirror practicing this. Like
mhm,
I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot, but yeah, knowing your face is paramount.
okay. Yeah. That, yeah. Thank you for that info. So I want you mentioned the coffee books and paying attention to like, and trend seems to be a running important point for what you decide to shoot. Are there any like go-to magazines or photographers that you like to look at or research to see where the trend is going, or do you have any recommendations for talent?
So as I was, learning and coming up and having, these different inspirational photographers, I used to look at a lot of like photographers by the name two. It's a duo. There's Merton Marcus. I would look at people like Mario Testino. I would look at who else? It was so many, but my favorite that were when I was coming up and learning were Merton Marcus, because they had such a very distinct style and look. Now, as far as relating that to where the trend is going, all of those guys are completely out of it, because the trend is going is and has been going this way for a while. It seems like everything is going towards film, like
Mm-hmm.
shooting film. And I don't even know how to even deal with that, like, to get into that. I I don't know, because I don't even look now I don't even really look at other photographers now. Um, I I I get a lot of my inspiration and a lot of things that I see off of Instagram, and a lot of these photographers that I look at, I don't even know of them, never heard of them,
Mm-hmm.
but Instagram has opened up this world of artistry of people that you would have otherwise not even heard of. Um, and you can just pull inspiration literally from anywhere, you know. But my inspiration, when I look for inspiration, I'm looking at lighting and I'm looking at the tone of the image, whether it's very, very warm or if it's a cold image, or if the shadows have a hint of blue or a hint of purple or a hint of orange, and the highlights, do they have a hint of yellow? If they're shooting outside, what color is the sky? Is it like a deep dark blue, or is it like a purplish or teal type blue? I mean green. Um, or like what exactly is going on in the image. I don't really look at images for inspiration for other things outside of that. Now I might see one image and be like, okay, this is what I want. This is the type of scope that I want for the styling. And I get into the styles and I say, build off of this type of genre of clothing. And then, with you, I'll show you an image of hair. This is what I want for the hair. And
Right.
that's pretty much it. Makeup, the makeup that I'm dealing with, I don't do a lot of uh, glam type makeup. I don't like
Right.
that because I don't like retouching it. So, you know, and it's not that the makeup artists that I work with can't do it. I just don't like retouching it because it's now the makeup artists that I work with, I rarely have to do anything to their makeup
Mm.
uh, because they're just that good. But on an off chance that I do have to do something to the eyeshadow, blend it out more, or you know, sometimes there may be too much contour on the nose or in the cheeks, and I have to blend. I just don't like having to do that, so I lean more towards a clean makeup. So when I show like an inspiration for makeup, that's it's going to be pretty much no makeup,
Right.
you know, because with that, at least I can, you know, it looks natural enough to where all I have to do is remove this zit, that zit, and you know, and that's pretty much it. Um, but to be completely honest, I really prefer no makeup on the face at all. You
Oh.
know, but I know that I can't work like that because most clients are not going to have that. You
Right.
know, because I rather retouch a face without makeup than a face with makeup because a lot of times, depending on like if I'm working for a client and they're not allowing me to supply my team, sometimes they'll choose a makeup artist that puts on too much foundation and you can see it. I can
Mm.
see it. You got, especially with beauty, think about I'm zooming in to like 100%. So
Mm.
at times, so I don't want to be able to see a lot of makeup over the pores in the face. I need to be able to see the pores in their face.
Mm.
So, you know, yeah, that's what I look at for inspiration, those things. But photographers now, what I'm trying to figure out right now how I can, like I was saying in the beginning of the conversation, how when I at the beginning I would look at other photographers and I would try to combine everything that I got from everybody into a
Mhm.
new style. Right now, I'm basically looking at all these photographers that are coming out that are basically shooting the same type of film look. Um, and I'm just basically absorbing what they're doing and I'm pushing it into my style, you know, to where you can look at my photos and you can tell that it's, well, at least I can, you can tell that it's digital, but it has a hint of film to it. Um,
Mm.
but that all comes in post production. Um, but that's basically what I'm doing now. Just looking at them for inspiration and then just kind of absorbing it into what I have going on already and basically trying to create a new shift in my work, you know, that would yield more clientele in this new climate of naturalness in film.
Mhm. So I going into creating new work, I think we can segue into like testing because this is how you and I started working together was I'm sorry, someone's cutting grass. I don't know if you can hear it,
Nah,
but um we started testing together. So does that mean that you'll start doing like some test work or how does that work for building new areas of your portfolio, new looks? Like how important is testing to you and how important should testing be to models and talent?
testing is extremely important to me and extremely should be extremely important to models uh, and anybody in the industry space. Now, the problem is though, okay, let me just, I'm gonna get there. All right. So let me not start with the problem. So basically, testing is important to me um, because testing allows you to get out ideas that you wouldn't otherwise get out um, with working with strictly clients. Like for instance, most of the jobs that I get are based off of, you know, tests that I've done because it shows the scope of what you can do. Now, most of my tests are very simple, very simple. It's nothing extravagant. It's usually a plain background and all this kind of stuff, but it shows that I can basically work with a very small amount of tools and create an image that will sell something,
Mm-hmm.
sell whatever product that they're trying to sell. Um, Now, as far as for models, models need tests because without tests, you wouldn't have any work. Because that's generally typically what they're getting booked off of. They're getting booked off their portfolio, and a lot of their portfolio is tests until they start getting, the bigger jobs. You know, once you start getting to a point to where your tests look great, then you can start booking things like like magazine spreads and things like that. But alongside booking magazine spreads, you'll be able to book commercial clients because the magazine spread, you're getting what, $150, $250 for a magazine spread. And I'm not talking about like a a no-name magazine. I'm talking about like Vogue. Like you're not making money off of that. But with the commercial jobs, you're gonna make a pretty good amount of money. Um, but you need to have that range of type of tests in your book. Now, the problem becomes when it's a lot of problems, but basically what testing is, people think it's a free type work scenario, but it's not free because it's especially for the photographer, because you gotta remember, you know, the photographer is probably, if they don't have their own studio, they're renting a studio. And a lot of times, I mean, you can, depending on what type of shoot you're doing and the size of the studio, for a test, you can end up spending $1,500 for a day, you know, and then you have like other things like you might need to rent equipment, and or you might need to rent equipment from the studio, and that's just adding on top of everything, so it's not, it's free for everybody else for the most part. Well, really, it's more so free for the model, because when you look at like the hairstylist and the stylist and the makeup artists, you have makeup, they have to buy their makeup. Then, hairstylists, I don't know whatever products you guys use in the hair, and then you have the stylist who has to pull these clothes. And, you can say that, okay, well, the stylist is going to just return those clothes. That's true. But what if something happens to one of those, objects that they pull, and then they have to pay for that? So, that's one issue. People just believing that it's just a free scenario. It's not. The only person that's really getting free scenario is the model. And I guess you can say they got to pay for gas, but then everybody got to pay for gas. So, uh, and then the other thing is knowing that there are levels. And what I mean by that is, like, you have to test with people that are on your same level. And that may sound kind of harsh, but if a model is up here and she's getting campaigns and stuff like that, and then a photographer is down here who is kind of just now starting, hasn't figured things out, and his work isn't quite as good as a photographer that would be up here shooting the campaign with the model, then there's a loss in here, and I get it, that's, you'll be thinking, okay, well, well, then how would the photographer be able to ever shoot anybody like that? Well, the photographer just has to keep working with models on his level and keep raising everybody, in that particular level along with them. Like, you get better work, the model gets better work, and y'all just keep getting better and better. So what you need to do is, at least for me, my advice in that type of scenario would be for a photographer to find a muse that they can work together, and he can get his ideas out and knock out some dope shoots, and then just keep raising, his abilities until he gets to the point of being able to work with the model up there. And it goes vice versa. A photographer, you can't always be, picking out models that are just brand new and think that those tests are really going to turn a client, towards you, because a lot of times when models are here and photographer is here, those images aren't going to come out super great anyway. Um, but it's very important, but that also segues into a situation to where you have to understand when it's time to pay someone. If the model is up here and the photographer is down here, photographer, you need to pay that model. Vice versa, model, you need to pay that photographer. You can't just think you're going to just be testing for free, getting great images, you know, when the photographer is up here doing shooting campaigns and doing things of the sort. It has to be a mutual exchange for, at least in my mind, for it to be okay to be like, okay, we can do this for free. We can try to break even between one another, you know, you're doing this type of work, I'm doing this type of work. Let's get together and create something dope for everybody, you know. Uh, but as I said, testing is very important because it helps you build your port, and it also allows the photographer to have specific materials to be able to send out to specific clients. And it should work the same way for everybody involved. And a good photographer, what they would do is, if they do a test with a bunch of, well, a team of people, even the model, and you send it out to a client, and then the client is like, hey, we like this. We'd like to do something just like this. You need to make sure you bring the team that you shot with on the job with you, you know, unless the client is just gung ho on, we can't afford your whole team or something silly like that, which we know they try to pull that anyway. But yeah, that's it. That's it.
Well, that's really useful information. So thanks for sharing that. So this is like my final question.
Yep.
Um, how do you get camera ready when the tables turn and it's all eyes on
On me,
Marcus? Yes.
I don't. Because if you notice my social media presence, uh, until recently, people didn't even know what I looked like until I put up an image of myself, because I was challenged by a bunch of fellow photographers for me to put up that image of myself. But like I don't get camera ready because I don't like to be in front of the camera, period. And honestly, you'll find that with most photographers, they don't like to be in front of the camera. Um, I don't know. It's just weird for me for the camera to be pointed at me. So I don't get camera ready at all.
That is funny. So do you have anything coming up that you want to share, or if you wanted to share like your contact info, how people can reach you? Um,
Sure. Um, I can be reached at on my Instagram at Marcus Ezell, MarcusEzell. I can be emailed at marcusEphotography@gmail. If you want to reach out that way. As far as things coming up, I have a personal. If anybody goes to my site, which is marcusephotography.com, and that's marcusephotography.com. I have a personal work part on my site. I had a few a few agents approached me about possibly turning that into a book. I'm working on that now. We're going to see what happens with that. I actually was building a coffee table book when I was in Atlanta around like 2014, but that ended up falling through because most of the participants ended up pulling out of it. So that made the book fall flat. So, but anyway, so this one is a more serious look at my personal work. So if anybody wants to check out my personal work, just go to my site and just click on personal work. But yeah, I'm building that into a book, and we're gonna see how that goes.
that's exciting. That is pretty cool.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see. Hopefully it doesn't fall through this time. I don't think it will, but it should be good.